This video will deal with motivation and reward, and more specifically will deal with Vroom's expectancy theory. Now, expectancy theory emphasizes employees' motivation in regards to their perception of performance and associated reward. So it's linking motivation with the perception of performance and associated reward. So really we have three issues here: motivation, performance and reward. Vroom suggests that individuals behave in a certain way which will determine a specific result which is favorable to them. So individuals will engineer their working practices in a way that gives them an outcome, gives them a result that's favorable to them. So employees will know what the performance that's required of them and expected of them. They know what performance they're willing to put in, and that's linked to the amount of reward they receive, and indeed how that reward is measured and how that reward is issued. Vroom identifies three factors: expectancy, instrumentality and valence. We want to talk about these three, but let's go back 1 second, back to the reward part. It's interesting to speculate here about the reward and what sort of reward is appropriate to bring about high levels of motivation. Is it monetary reward or is it recognition? What exactly is it that drives the employees to expend more effort and more concentration and more diligence and gain more productivity from their activities? So that's an issue that needs to be perhaps debated elsewhere. But for the moment we're going to focus in on the three factors that Vroom identifies as important: expectancy, instrumentality and valence. So we'll start with expectancy. Effort leads to desired performance. So that's the first proposition we meet, that effort leads to desired performance. The employees expend effort, and the effort that's been expended generates the performance that's required. That's assuming, of course, that the effort is appropriate and channeled in the right directions and so on. So we're making a layer of assumptions underneath. But generally speaking, what we're saying is that effort leads to the desired performance. Employees' belief that applying a certain amount of effort will lead to performance. So the employees understand that if they apply a certain amount of effort, then there will be a certain performance, a certain outcome, a certain efficiency, a certain productivity. Again, as I said, we're skipping over issues like the appropriateness of the effort, the directions which the effort is channeled, the background training and support that the employees have, the ancillary inputs that may be required in addition to the effort, perhaps from additional employees or from some sort of supporting technology. We'll skip all of this. We'll just sort of concentrate on the fact that a certain amount of effort will lead to performance, and the employee must understand what is the performance that's required of him or her and what effort is needed to generate that performance. Expectancy equals 0. Now if that's the case, if it equals 0, then the employee feels it's impossible to reach the given performance level. They have zero expectancy. They can't achieve what's expected of them. And 1, they believe that the performance level is achievable. So we have a sort of binary relationship here. We have 0, what's expected can't be done. It's impossible, at least in the belief of the employee. Or it's 1, in which case it can be done. The outcome, the performance level that's required can be achieved. It's 1. So we have we have a grading for the expectancy, which is 0 or 1. We could have a range in between. We could have a range between 0 and 1, which indicates the doubts that the person would have in terms of achieving the performance. So for example, let's say it was 0.5. In that case, the employee is not entirely sure it can be done. They're ambivalent. They don't know. It might be done, possible. If it's 0.6, they're slightly more confident that it can be done. 0.7, more confident still. If it's 1, they are absolutely confident that what's expected can be achieved. Instrumentality. Well, if performance expectation is met, then the employee will receive a reward. So, the employee is given a task, and the task will be assessed in terms of its performance. If the employee achieves the performance that's required, they will receive a certain reward. This reward is the instrument that drives the performance. So motivation is a function of this reward that's going to be issued if the employee achieves the performance that was expected of them. The level to which an employee feels a certain level of performance leads to desired result, reward. So the level to which the employee feels a certain level of performance, the employee must feel that it is achievable, what's been asked. Otherwise they simply will not engage in the process whatever. If they feel it's an impossible task, they're not going to even try. But if they believe it can be achieved, and there is a reward at the end, the reward will drive the motivation to achieve what's been expected. Instrumentality varies between 0 and 1. So if the reward is appropriate, then it's 1. Because the reward is what is making the employee engage in the task to try to achieve the performance that's required. It's 1. They think that the reward is worth going for. It's worth trying to get that reward. If the task is extremely difficult and the reward is not very much, they might think it's 0. It's not worth trying. It's a lot of effort and very little reward. So why bother? And of course, as I said, it could vary between 0 to 1. If it's 0.8, they think the reward could be more, but on balance, they'll try and see what happens. Valence. This is the third part of Vroom's theory. The value the individual places on the rewards given their needs, goals, values and motivations. So the employee will look at the rewards that are offered and grade the rewards. They will grade them mentally. They will think about them and see, do they need this reward? Is it worthwhile? Let's take an example. Let's say the management need the employees to work extra, say go into work on a Saturday. Perhaps traditionally they don't work on Saturdays, but they need the employees to go in on Saturday because there's a big order that needs to be completed. So that's what the employees need. That's the performance they need. They need this performance to get the employees in. Now, that's achievable. That can be done. The employees simply have to go into the place of work on a Saturday. However, the reward for going in may be they just get the same remuneration as they get during the week. Well, they think their lifestyle is sufficient. They've got sufficient resources to look after the family and pay the bills, and they think they fancy having a day off. They want to relax at the weekends. So the rewards have to be even more to try and induce them to give up their Saturdays. The rewards have to be sufficient to enable the tasks to be undertaken, enable the employees to come down on the side of doing the Saturday work, let's say. So the rewards have to motivate them to do it. There also has to be an attractiveness about the rewards. It has to be something that the employees feel is good for them. It's sufficient reward. It's attractive. It doesn't have to be, in fact, it doesn't have to be money or monetary reward. It could be recognition, it could be some sort of perk. But again, it has to be gauged as attractive by the employee. Otherwise, they're not going to try hard to get it. And in that case, the performance will not be met. The value and importance the employee has on the reward. So if the employee thinks it's important to get the reward and what is the value to them of the reward, then that might drive them. Now there's significant overlap in these three, but the point is that the reward should be such as to motivate the employees to attempt this particular task or this particular expectation and meet that requirement, meet the performance that was expected. The valence ranges from -1, undesirable, to +1, which is desirable. So there's a grading for the rewards to see if it's desirable or not, ranging in that range from -1 to +1. Now, according to Vroom, the degree to which an employee motivation is dependent on the three factors. Well, the way that is worked out is that the motivational force is equal to the expectancy times the instrumentality times the valence. Now, that looks like a neat single equation. It seems like we could put into figures for expectancy, instrumentality and valence and calculate the motivational force. But of course, where do we get these figures from? Where do we get the range from 0 to 1 or from -1 to +1? Where do we get these figures? How do we assess them? Well, they would have to be assessed psychologically. They would have to be assessed in terms of some sort of attitudinal scale, maybe assessed by a Likert scale, an attitudinal scale asking the employees to rate the rewards or rate the effort that's required on a scale and try to work out the attitudinal stance of the employees in relationship to expectancy, instrumentality and valence, which would give us some sort of figure. But in fact, the effort to do that would detract from the whole exercise. So it's more of a, not an empirical statement, more of a suggestion of how these various parts are linked. And it breaks up the motivational force into its components for us, at least this particular version of the theory of motivation. So it breaks up the motivational force into three components. In order to create high levels of motivation, managers need to establish rewards that are likely to impact on employees' performance levels. So the rewards should be ideally suited to the performance of the tasks that are set for the employees. The rewards should be adjusted and carefully measured and worked out so as to enable the tasks to be undertaken and performed to a good quality. So, as I said, we have a way of breaking up the motivational force into the three components, and now we can look at the rewards and make sure that the rewards are appropriate. Of course, all of this is much more easily said than done. This is it's highly speculative, but it does give us an insight into what is it that constitutes the motivational force. It's important that managers consider an employee's expectancy, instrumentality and valence in order to encourage motivation. That's the point. It's important that the managers are aware of these components of motivational force, at least according to this particular theory of motivation, Vroom's theory of motivation. So that gives us an insight into this particular theory, and again, that's all we're going to deal with in this session, so let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.